Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
Bedding that keeps a person warm in bed. Anything that covers. There was a blanket of snow. Broad in scope or content. Blanket sanctions against human rights violators. A layer of lead surrounding the highly reactive core of a nuclear reactor. Cover as if with a blanket. Snow blanketed the fields. Form a blanket-like cover, over. A recording of a song that was first recorded or made popular by somebody else. They made a cover of a Beatles song. Form a cover over. The grass covered the grave. Clothe, as if for protection from the elements. Cover your head. A fixed charge by a restaurant or nightclub over and above the charge for food and drink. The act of concealing the existence of something by obstructing the view of it. The cover concealed their guns from enemy aircraft. Travel across or pass over. The caravan covered almost 100 miles each day. Span an interval of distance, space or time. The period covered the turn of the century. A covering that serves to conceal or shelter something. Under cover of darkness. Include in scope. Include as part of something broader. Have as one sphere or territory. This should cover everyone in the group. Fire that makes it difficult for the enemy to fire on your own individuals or formations. Artillery provided covering fire for the withdrawal. Put something on top of something else. Cover the meat with a lot of gravy. A natural object that covers or envelops. Under a covering of dust. The protective covering on the front, back, and spine of a book. Make up for shortcomings or a feeling of inferiority by exaggerating good qualities. Bedding that keeps a person warm in bed. He pulled the covers over his head and went to sleep. Hide from view or knowledge. The president covered the fact that he bugged the offices in the White House. Be responsible for reporting the details of, as in journalism. The Cub reporter covered New York City. Covering for a hole, especially a hole in the top of a container. Put the cover back on the kettle. Act on verbally or in some form of artistic expression. The course covered all of Western civilization. Sit on, eggs. The female covers the eggs. Protect by insurance. The insurance won't cover this. Cover as if with a shroud. Copulate with a female, used especially of horses. The horse covers the mare. A false identity and background, especially one created for an undercover agent. Her new name and passport or cover for her next assignment. Be responsible for guarding an opponent in a game. Be sufficient to meet, defray, or offset the charge or cost of. Is this enough to cover the check? Help out by taking someone's place and temporarily assuming his responsibilities. She is covering for our secretary who is ill this week. Hold within range of an aimed firearm. Invest with a large or excessive amount of something. She covered herself with glory. Maintain a check on, especially by patrolling. The second officer covered the top floor. Play a higher card than the one previously played. Smith covered again. Protect or defend, a position in a game. He covered left field. Provide for. The grant doesn't cover my salary. Provide with a covering or cause to be covered. Cover her face with a handkerchief. Spread over a surface to conceal or protect. This paint covers well. To take an action to protect against future problems. Count the cash in the drawer twice just to cover yourself. Zoology. A protective layer of epidermis in mollusks or brachiopods that secretes a substance forming the shell. A sleeveless garment like a cloak but shorter. Shelf that projects from wall above fireplace. Hanging cloth used as a blind, especially for a window. United States baseball player, 1931 to 1997. Anything that covers. Cover like a mantle. The ivy mantles the building. Spread over a surface, like a mantle. The cloak as a symbol of authority. Place the mantle of authority on younger shoulders. The layer of the earth between the crust and the core. Broad in scope or content. Across the board pay increases. Broad in scope or content. An all-embracing definition. Broad in scope or content. Broad in scope or content. Showing or characterized by broad-mindedness. A broad political stance. Having great, or a certain, extent from one side to the other. A river 2 miles broad. Not detailed or specific. A broad rule. Lacking subtlety, obvious. Gave us a broad hint that it was time to leave. Being at a peak or culminating point. Broad daylight. Broad in scope or content. An invention with broad applications. Very large in expanse or scope. A broad lawn. Of speech, heavily and noticeably regional. A broad southern accent. Slang term for a woman. Abroad as a woman who can throw a mean punch. Closely encircling. Encompassing mountain ranges. Broad in scope or content. Large in spatial extent or range or scope or quantity. An extensive Roman settlement in northwest England. Broad in scope or content. Of agriculture. Increasing productivity by using large areas with minimal outlay and labor. Producing wheat under extensive conditions. Including everything visible in one view. A panoptic aerial photograph of the missile base. Broad in scope or content. A panoptic study of Soviet nationality. Not on target. The kick was wide. Used of eyes, fully open or extended. Stared with wide eyes. Far from the intended target. The arrow went wide of the mark. Having great, or a certain, extent from one side to the other. Wide roads. Having ample fabric. The current taste for wide trousers. To or over a great extent or range, far. Wandered wide through many lands. Broad in scope or content. Granted him wide powers. Very large in expanse or scope. The wide plains. Great in degree. Won by a wide margin. An intensive examination testing a student's proficiency in some special field of knowledge. Broad in scope. A comprehensive survey of world affairs. Including all or everything. Comprehensive coverage. Coverings that are used on a bed. Material used to provide a bed for animals. Coverings that are used on a bed. Coverings that are used on a bed. A natural object that covers or envelops. The act of concealing the existence of something by obstructing the view of it. The work of applying something. A natural object that covers or envelops. Under a covering of dust. An artifact that covers something else, usually to protect or shelter or conceal it. The act of protecting something by covering it. An abstract place usually conceived as having depth. A simile has at least two layers of meaning. Single thickness of usually some homogeneous substance. A hen that lays eggs. A relatively thin sheet-like expanse or region lying over or under another. Make or form a layer. Layer the different colored sands. Thin structure composed of a single thickness of cells. A depression forming the ground under a body of water. He searched for treasure on the ocean bed. Have sexual intercourse with. Single thickness of usually some homogeneous substance. Slices of hard-boiled egg on a bed of spinach. Prepare for sleep. He goes to bed at the crack of dawn. A stratum of ore or coal thick enough to be mined with profit. He worked in the coal beds. A foundation of earth or rock supporting a road or railroad track. The track bed had washed away. A piece of furniture that provides a place to sleep. He sat on the edge of the bed. A plot of ground in which plants are growing. The gardener planted a bed of roses. Furnish with a bed. The innkeeper could bed all the new arrivals. Geology, a stratum of rock, especially sedimentary rock. They found a bed of sandstone. Place plants in a prepared bed of soil. Put to bed. The children were bedded at 10 o'clock. The flat surface of a printing press on which the type form is laid in the last stage of producing a newspaper or magazine or book, etc. Form a cover over. Tall, graceful breed of hound with a long silky coat. Native to the Near East. A native or inhabitant of Afghanistan. Of or relating to or characteristic of Afghanistan or its people. An Iranian language spoken in Afghanistan and Pakistan, the official language of Afghanistan. A coat made of sheepskin. A blanket knitted or crocheted in strips or squares, sometimes used as a shawl. A blanket containing an electric heating element that can be controlled to the desired temperature by a rheostat. A short plaid coat made of thick woolen material. A flat-bottomed boat used on upper Great Lakes. A thick plaid blanket formerly used in the northwestern United States. A heavy woolen cloth heavily napped and felted, often with a plaid design. A thick plaid blanket formerly used in the northwestern United States. Extremely large pelagic tropical ray that feeds on plankton and small fishes. Usually harmless, but its size make it dangerous if harpooned. A blanket that is used as a cloak or shawl. A blanket, or toy, that a child carries around in order to reduce anxiety. Anything that an adult person uses to reduce anxiety. A nuclear reactor that produces more fissile material than it burns.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.